months is not going to provide the support, the structural change that we need to fix this problem. And the Gas for Australians policy is going to provide that short to medium term relief. The next part of our plan, as you know, is to bring in a zero emissions technology being used by 19 of the top 20 economies in the world. The only reason the government's opposed to nuclear energy is because they're worried about green voters in inner city Sydney and Melbourne, and they're happy to hang the rest of the country out to dry. So we have a short-term plan, we have a medium-term plan, and we have a longer-term plan which will get this country back on track. It is about economic management, and it's only through good economic management that we can deal with what is coming at us from the United States, from China, from the rest of the world in relation to tariffs. All of that is going to be a huge economic shock. The Treasurer is already talking about a recession under Labor in this country. I want to make sure that we can help families, and unfortunately the bad decisions of this government over 3 years have really left people in a very difficult position. Australians can't afford 3 more years of Anthony Albanese, and a big spending Labor Greens government will bring higher interest rates for Australians, as well as higher electricity and gas prices, and that's not something that we're going to tolerate. We'll start over here and then we'll work our way around.
When is the earliest people will see retail gas and electricity prices go down under your plan?
So under our plan, we bring more gas in straight away because we speak to the...
When do prices...
We speak to the companies from day one. Now, some of the big gas companies aren't happy, but I'm fighting for families and I'm fighting for small businesses and for bigger manufacturing businesses so that we can bring costs down across the economy. I want the price of steel to come down and the price of bricks to come down, and they can under our policy. So we do in the first 100 days speak to those companies and work our way through our plan. We decouple from the international price, and we can see more gas coming into the system by the end of this calendar year, and that's when you'll start to see a reduction in those prices.
Retail prices?
Yes.
Retail prices this year.
Mr. Dutton, the factory inside was a bit of a microcosm of modern multicultural Australia. We saw in the debate last night a couple of the questions were framed in a way that was critical of your cuts to the migration intake. Are you concerned that talking of cutting migration might hurt you in these Western Sydney multicultural seats that you need to win?
Andrew, I actually think the opposite's the case. When I speak to young migrant families who have teenage kids now, they've been here for a few years, they're desperately worried about whether their kids can find a house. And they're worried in their own circumstances, being locked out of housing. And under Mr Albanese, rents have gone up by 18%. Young Australians, it doesn't matter whether you come from a young Indian family or a young Chinese family or you've been here for generations, you're, as grandparents, as parents, you're worried desperately under Labor because they've created a housing crisis. That's what Australians are feeling. And our decision to cut the migration program by 25% is all about getting young Aussies into homes. Mr Albanese has a plan to lock Australians out of homes. I'm going to be the Prime Minister for our country who can see young Australians achieving that dream again. I want young Australians to be able to own their own home. I want rents to be affordable. But under Mr Albanese and Mr Band, it is going to be a nightmare for housing. We've got a plan to bring construction costs down and a $5 billion plan to build 500,000 new homes. And under our migration cuts, we create 40,000 homes. They become available for Australians in the first year, and over 5 years we'll create about 100,000 additional homes, and I think that's really powerful.
Mr. Dutton, your migration
cuts... Just here and we'll come across.
Sorry to hear about your dad. How's he doing? And were there moments during the Sky News debate that you were thinking of him?
Well, look, I spoke to Dad this morning, and thank you for the question and asking about him. He's doing well. He's stoic. He's a tough bugger. He's worked hard all of his life, and he's been an amazing dad. So, yeah, of course you think about it. But he's fine. He's doing well. Thank you.
On US relations, you've said that coalition will keep continuity in Washington with Kevin Rudd. Given the market turmoil, how relations are going, would you reconsider that position, and how is your approach different from Labor?
Look, I think what Australians are worried about at the moment is who is better to manage our economy and bring down the cost of living, who can deal with the economic headwinds. If we have a recession in the United States, if there is a global recession, if there's a broader war in Europe, a Labor Greens government with a weak and incompetent Prime Minister is not going to be able to deal with that. I have served as the Defence Minister, as the Home Affairs Minister, as Health Minister. I've worked for 4 Prime Ministers. I've watched closely 7 Prime Ministers in action. I was around the Cabinet table with my colleagues when we dealt with COVID, and we made decisions which brought Australians economically through COVID in a much better shape than many other countries around the world. I have the experience, and my team has the experience, to deal with whatever comes at our country. The Prime Minister has demonstrated that he's always weak, always late to the game, and the lies just roll off his tongue. And I think
Why
as the Prime Minister points
in
out,
Washington?
well, we have the contacts and we have the ability. We make sure that we work on relationships. We were able to negotiate with the Biden administration the AUKUS agreement, which has underpinned our national security for 100 years. And we can deal with any administration in the United States. And I believe very strongly that only a coalition government can deal with the economic headwinds, the uncertainty, the prospect of a global recession. Labor has demonstrated all they do is tax and spend. This is the biggest spending government in 40 years, the biggest spending government since Gough Whitlam. And it's actually even worse than the Whitlam government. And Australians know it. When the Prime Minister's out there saying, oh, look, you've never had it better off, be grateful for what's happened over the last 3 years. He's not able to talk about his track record, because over the last 3 years, it's been a disaster for many families. And I want to make sure that we can help get our country back on track, help manage the cost of living crisis that Labor's created. And our gas plan is about getting Australian gas for Australians. That will bring the price down if we bring more supply, between 50 and 100 petajoules into the market. And the Prime Minister is not promising to fix any problem. All he's doing is got a $150 part-time rebate in place, but people know that their power prices have gone up by $1,300.
The question was on US relations.
Yeah, and I've dealt with that. Yes.
Mr. Dutton, you just talked about your 25% cut to migration.
Yeah.
Now that's to permanent migration, and
Yes.
it means people who are already here. You initially had a target to cut net migration, which is really the figure that matters, by 100,000 more than Labor. You've early, can't remember when, announced 30,000 more on students. Are you still committed to that 100,000 deeper cut?
Yes.
And if so,
Yeah,
yes.
so in
So
relation,
what is your net overseas migration
Your question
target?
is in relation to the NOM. We can reduce the NOM by 100,000.
Okay.
And we-
when will that happen?
Well, straight away, once we get into government, we can deal with Labor's mess.
Okay.
This is the issue. You see,
So is that going back to 160,000?
well, it depends on what the NOM figure is at the moment, because if you have a look at the Prime Minister, all sorts of wild projections in relation to NOM, and none of them achieve. They always blow out, and their migration targets always blow out. So, from the figure that we achieve, that we bequeathed when we come into government, the figure that it is when we change government, we can reduce it by 100,000.
Okay, so
that's
if
our
it stays
position.
at 260,000, that means you'll go down to 160,000, which was your initial figure from the budget reply speech.
Correct,
isn't it?
and if it goes up under this government, which you would expect it to, I mean, they're talking about 1.8 million people coming in over a 5-year period. Don't forget that is over a 2-year period, 1 million people, which is 70% more than at any 2-year period in our country's history. And you wonder why we've got a housing crisis when they've stopped the supply of housing. They've allowed the CFMEU to run riot through the building sector, which has driven up the cost of constructing a house. I want to make home affordability a reality for Australians again. And we can do that by putting in place our 2-year ban on foreign buyers, to stop those foreign buyers from competing against young Australians in buying Australian homes.
There was a big business
Yeah.
backlash to that 160,000 number. Are you worried about that?
I'm not worried about that. I've got the first and foremost interest in mind, and that is to get young Australians into housing. I'm not going to tolerate Labor's policy where they're happy that Australians and young Australians can't get into housing. We've got older Australians at the moment who are working longer and harder because they had planned wisely and saved their whole lives to provide for their own retirement. They're pushing out their retirement date now because they think they know their kids need help either with rent or with a house deposit, or to help chip into the repayments that their kids are making each month on their mortgage. Now that's not something the Prime Minister's talking about, but that's the reality of what Australians are going through, and I don't want that to be the case. I want young Australians to be able to afford housing. Young Australians are putting off having kids at the moment under this government because they can't afford to rent and to save for a deposit at the same time and pay for childcare. So this government has created a real mess, and when the Prime Minister says, well, everything's okay, and vote for him and Adam Bandt, and another 3 years will be better, well, that's what he promised on 97 occasions in relation to bringing the price of power down. It hasn't happened. Yes.
Mr. Dutton, will you be going to visit your father today? And a question for Mr. O'Brien, if I may.
Can he guarantee that gas exporters won't scale back production to essentially avoid having to pay the export tax or sell to the local market at lower prices?
Well, I've spoken to Dad this morning, and I've got amazing siblings, and my sisters are with Dad at the moment, so I'll just monitor that and see how we go. And then Ted will.
Our plan is to ensure that we have more Australian gas for Australians first. As part of that broader suite of policies, we will be supporting more investment on the part of the gas industry so we get more gas out of the ground. Ultimately, when you look at the full suite of policies, it's all about increasing the supply of gas. Now, domestically, that translates into cheaper prices. Higher supply, cheaper prices. Now, the sorts of policies which will lead to an increase in investment and production of gas include the fact that we will be halving the approval process time. We will have a $300 million strategic basin plan. We'll be scrapping any funding to the likes of the EDO. I mean, an Albanese government-funded group of legal activists fighting against gas projects. We will ensure that gas is included in the capacity investment scheme. We will have a $1 billion critical gas infrastructure fund. Now, when you look at all of these policy measures together, what you see is a carefully calibrated plan to ensure we get more gas out of the ground. Now, that means gas which will be used first and foremost for the Australian market, but also for export. One of the conditions that we put on our Australian gas for Australian first policy is that we will honour all the volumes under the foundation contracts to our trading partners. That's absolutely key. Under the Albanese government, we have seen Australia get a bad reputation for sovereign risk. I mean, our key trading partners have looked at the Albanese government and started to question the reliability of Australian supply. We'll be reversing that, which is why we've been very upfront from the very beginning that the plan that we will be putting in place will honour those relationships and the volumes under those contracts. You see, the more gas we can get out of the ground, that means more gas for export, but first and foremost, it means more gas for Australians. So we can get prices down, and that means households pay less for the gas they use at home. And for all of us, when we go shopping, whether it be for food produce, whether it be for materials, then the cheaper gas prices paid by industry flows through. It's a laser focus on everything's about cost of living ease, and that's what this policy is about.
Mr. Dutton.
Mr.
Dutton, just further to Andrew's question on Western Sydney and attitudes here, you were accused earlier today by the Education Minister of demonising voters here in the West, and he was referring to those 2016 comments you made and later apologised for at the Lebanese community. What is your reaction to Mr. Clare's claim today, and can you also clarify who exactly did you give that personal apology to?
I'll just say this, when you see the Labor Party throwing mud, whether it's in relation to their Medicare campaign, the lies about Medicare, bulk billing rates have actually come down under this government. When you see them out there talking about our energy policy, the lies that the Prime Minister roll out and the mud that they throw in relation to me, to my colleagues, why are they doing that? I mean, they're doing it because they don't have a good 3 years to talk about. So that's what I think people are focused on. I've said repeatedly that we are a great beneficiary of the migration program in our country. Look, Carmen's family story, you look at many other candidates that we have running at this election, people who have worked hard. The migrant story, particularly, I think we've pointed out on many occasions, of people who have come here since the Second World War period, people who have started with nothing, amassed a fortune, or people who have come here as builders and bricklayers and tilers and the rest of it. We are a net beneficiary of that. But I think the concentration at the moment is on how can our migration program work best for us. It doesn't work best for us when you see an escalation in numbers to a record high. This whole Big Australia policy that has led to Anthony Albanese's housing crisis, and the reason young Australians can't get into housing is because of the decisions the Prime Minister's made. So they can throw mud, you would expect it, but I don't think
can you say who
it's
you
what,
gave that personal apology to?
No, I've already commented.
Mr. Dutton, what is your response to concerns that you're not taking a comprehensive economic manifesto to the election or laid out how you're going to tackle structural deficits and spending?
I just think the Labor Party should stop pushing that rubbish around. What you've seen under this government is the biggest spending government in 40 years. They've locked in structural spends into the budget, and they have committed to wasteful spending, some of which has been highlighted. We've been opposed to it. And if you ask why we have had the biggest downturn in living standards in our country compared to any other comparable nation, go to the US, go to the UK, go to Canada. They haven't experienced what Australians have been put through over the last 3 years. 12 interest rate rises under this government haven't happened because of what we've seen in the Middle East, and the government's position keeps changing on that. What has happened is this government has spent, and that's why the Reserve Bank Governor has pointed out that there's a homegrown inflation problem. Now, our plan is for a short-term support package in the form of 25 cent a litre reduction, which is going to have an economy-wide benefit. It has a downward pressure on price structures, not just for families, but for tradies and for everybody else across the economy. The short-term plan and the medium-term plan is to bring more gas into the system so that we can reduce the cost of building homes, we can reduce the cost of groceries. That is a structural save in the economy. We also obviously put forward plans which we believe in the longer term will underpin the economic success, because don't forget that energy is the economy, and Labor's policy is all about pleasing inner city Greens. It's not about benefiting Australians, and that's why the coalition will always be better economic managers.
But Mr. Dutton, these concerns have come from within your own party as well.
Well, from where?
Just been reported in the Australian.
Yeah.
Mr. Dutton, looking at your gas announcement in cost of living terms, you've said again today that the government's $5 a week tax cuts in 2 years' time is a band-aid on a bullet wound. From the information you've given us today, you're talking about less than $1 a week cut in gas prices in about 2 years. So if $5 is a band-aid on a bullet wound, what's less than $1?
Well, Mark, if you compare that to 34% increase under Labor now, which has been the experience of the last 3 years, you put another 34% on top of that over the course of the next 3 years, or whatever it blows out to be under Labor, then the difference between the two parties is quite phenomenal. So we are talking about flatlining and reducing prices. Labor is talking about cost escalation, which is going to be felt not just in household bills, but also in the cost of the builder who's buying steel, the farmer who's buying fertiliser. Natural gas is a key ingredient in our economy, and if we can bring that cost down for every part of the economy that relies on gas and the use of gas to create and generate electricity, the difference between the two parties is quite staggering. So Mr Albanese is promising further price rises beyond the 34% and beyond the 32% that electricity has already gone up. Our plan is to bring that down. It'll take time to clean up Labor's mess, there's no question about that, but what is on offer at this election is a plan for the short, medium and long term to get our country back on track, to support families, to support the construction sector, to support farming, food production, manufacturing. There's been a threefold increase in the number of manufacturing businesses which have closed under Mr Albanese's watch. 29,000 small businesses have collapsed. The biggest number of business failures in our country's history has taken place in the last 12 months. So the difference between what we've got as addressing the core at the heart of the problem over time will be very significant, but I just don't think Australians can afford 3 more years of the cost increases.
Can you say how significant? Because it's only less than $1 in your information
Mark, let's
today.
look at the cost of cars. So a Ford Ranger goes up by $14,000 under Mr Albanese. That's a $14,000 saving if you're buying a car every 5 years. Put that over, let's say $3,000 a year. That's a savings under us. If you look at somebody who's going to buy a home, a first home, the cost of electricity and gas for this business here over the last 12 months has gone up by tens of millions of dollars. That cost is being passed on under Mr Albanese's plan. A young home buyer will see the builder charging them less because of our gas plan. So it's not just what you're paying for gas at home, it's the fact that when you go to the supermarket, the cost of groceries, the cost of fruit and veg, the cost of canned products, the cost of cereals, it's all gone up by 30% under this government because the cost of gas and electricity has gone up. Under us, the cost of food will come down. That's a direct result of our gas policy, and that's what will add to the savings for families. And I think families know that. They can't afford 3 more years, Mr Albanese, and a big spending government is just going to push up the cost of everything, including people's mortgages. And there's a much better way for our country, and that's what we're outlining.
Mr. Dutton.
Mr. Dutton, as the way I understand it, your plan slaps a levy on LNG exporters to force them to put gas into the economy. Does that apply to WA LNG exporters? And if the answer is no, is that constitutional?
Well, Andrew, it applies to our East Coast Market Reservation, and we've been very clear about the fact that we don't believe that we book any revenue out of that measure. So I just make this point. What we've looked at is, and you'll see this in the Frontier Economics report, we've done a lot of work on this. We've been working on this for a long time. We want to get it right. And what we do is we take away the advantage in exporting that gas, and we oblige those gas producers who otherwise would have sold our gas to foreign markets to put that gas into the market here. Now, by removing the advantage that they have in exporting the gas, we increase the supply here by 50 to 100 petajoules. We reduce the cost. Now, what Labor's demonstrated is that their gas plan has been a joke, and the companies have ignored it. It hasn't resulted in anything other than a 34% increase in the cost of gas. So our policy, as has been pointed out by Frontier Economics, a company that the Labor Party uses, the most, I think, preeminent economist in the energy space in our country, demonstrates that we can bring down the cost of wholesale gas by about 23%. And that means that there's a big positive impact for builders, for anybody who uses electricity, because gas is a big component of generating electricity, for everyone across the economy. We have the ability under our plan to use our gas for our people to bring prices down. And that's the whole design feature of what we've got on offer.
Mr. Dutton,
We'll just go to the back and we'll come out.
Australian energy producers say your policy is reducing domestic gas production should there be no incentive for gas companies to produce more than they're required to under those long-term contracts. The gas industry has also said it can make supply and pricing issues worse. These obviously the solutions are going to get on board. So what are you going to say to them and how you're going to get them on board? And just quickly to Andrew's question earlier, isn't the gas security charge just another name for a levy?
No, what we've looked at here is, are we here to line the pockets of big gas companies? No, I'm here to support consumers, and I want to bring the price of gas and electricity down, and the cost of groceries down, and the cost of construction down, and that's what we've done. So look at Bluescope's reaction to our announcement. They are a huge user of energy, as is Brickworks, two big ingredients and inputs into construction of a house. Bluescope says that this is a great policy because it's going to bring down the cost of their production here. And the cost of steel, as you know, has gone up dramatically over the last couple of years under this government. So I want to make sure that our policy is designed to support those consumers, but it doesn't damage the investment prospects for those companies, because as Ted pointed out before, we respect the foundation contracts, the exports that are going to Japan and to Malaysia and to Korea and to China, etc. But we're not going to allow the gas that's beyond that to go. And the reason that we will see more investment is because we are going to extend the life of those contracts, some of which come to an end in the 2030s, which is exactly what the international partners want, because they want certainty. But there is no certainty under Labor, because Tanya Plibersek is trying to stop these applications from proceeding. We're going to fast track the applications to bring more natural gas into the market here and to provide support to our exporters. And so under our policy, you'll see an increase in investment, you'll see more export, and you'll see more domestic consumption and more domestic supply, which is about bringing down the price of gas.
Mr. Dutton.
No, it's what it is what it is, and you get into all sorts of definitions, but what it is a clear signal from us that we want Australian gas for Australians first. And if we do that, we can bring the cost of groceries down. We can bring down the cost of electricity. We can bring down the cost of steel and bricks and everything else that goes into the construction of a house or a hospital or a bridge. This is going to have economy-wide benefits. The Labor Party is pretending that by giving you $150 until they run out, that somehow that's going to address the fundamental flaws in their energy policy. It's just not.
Mr. Dutton, when did you receive this model?
We've gone through a few iterations of this modelling, and it's obviously been the case that we've been speaking to Frontier Economics for the last couple of years about gas even before we were speaking about nuclear.
When did you receive this
we've released the report now, and
did you receive it after your budget
I'm not.
Sorry, did you receive it after your budget announcement?
Well, again, I'm not getting into who received what. Yep.
Mr. Dutton, you said at the top of this press conference that the savings have flowed through this calendar year, but the modelling actually acknowledges that there's a lag both for industrial and households on both electricity and gas savings. This morning, Ted O'Brien said, and I quote, "We should be seeing after 12 months of operation an impact on bills." So what's the basis for you claiming that that benefit will flow to the industrial users to make things like building materials and groceries cheaper, as well as households, much sooner than what you're modelling and your energy spokesman is saying?
Well, Claire, the point is, and I think Ted's pointed this out as well, we start negotiations with the companies from day one. It's part of our 100-day plan. And if you're in the market, as I think Bluescope probably is at the moment, you're negotiating with companies right now or in the run-up to the period after the 3rd of May. Now, our policy will have an immediate impact because those companies will enter into good faith negotiations with us, because many of them will say privately that of course they want to extend the foundation contracts. They want new supply coming on. And so there is an advantage in what we're providing here, because under Labor's model, they shut down, they choke the supply of gas. And I know that some of the companies are foxing and positioning at the moment, but our plan is to get more gas into the system. It's to work with those companies from day one, and I think we can see an impact very quickly. And I think we can see an impact not just for households, but for industrial users, for commercial users, and right across the economy. And I think there will be a very significant impact from day one, because the market will know that we are serious about getting Australian gas for Australians, and that will have an impact with the companies, and we'll enter into those discussions with them straight away.
Last question, thanks.
Just in terms of that 3% and 6% discount on gas and electricity prices, exactly when will the households be able to see that? Will it be 6 months? 12 months?
Well, again, we've said by the end of this calendar year, and we start negotiating. Well, it depends on when people are contracted and what their individual arrangements are. But across the economy, we reduce the cost of gas, and we start negotiations with the companies from day one. And what we're doing is we're saying that we want to address the structural problem, the real foundational problem that's in the economy at the moment, and that is Labor's renewables-only energy train wreck. It's driven the cost of everything up. But the Prime Minister wants to pretend that gas hasn't gone up by 34% under his watch. It has. He wants to pretend that he's going to deliver a $275 cut each year in electricity. He promised it on 97 occasions. It's never eventuated. The cost of electricity has gone up by $1,300. We are going to help consumers. We're going to help the industrial users like Bluescope and Brickworks and others bring their costs down, and consumers not only benefit in their own households, but they also benefit because they're purchasing products in the economy. Everything that we eat, everything that we consume, everything that we wear relies on energy somewhere in that supply chain. And it doesn't matter whether it's moving the clothes to a store, it doesn't matter whether it's taking the produce that's been grown with the use of fertiliser, which is very gas and energy intense. All of those things benefit from our policy, and that's it.
Mr. Dutton, just to close, great to know your dad is okay. Campaigns are pressure events for candidates like yourself, but they're pressure events for families of candidates too. Do you worry your dad is not being helped? It might even have been harmed by the fact that he's worried about you.
Oh, I'm sure he's been worried about me for 50 years.
Yeah, but
Tim,
more
so
now,
it's
right?
been longer. No, look, I think we have, our families take a big toll in this business. There's no doubt about that. And our spouses, our kids, our parents, they all watch and they look on. Dad's had pre-existing health conditions for a long time, and as I say, he's in the best of care. I love him very much, and he's a great dad to me and to my 4 siblings, and an amazing grandfather, lives for his grandkids, and that's what I think gives him a great spirit every day. And I'm glad that he's in good care, and I'm really grateful for the thoughts and the well wishes that we've had from literally thousands of people who have texted and emailed overnight. I'm very grateful for people's thoughts, and I know that he will be very grateful and appreciative as well. Thank you very much.
Good.